Hey everyone, I hope you're having a great week. I would like to discuss today the advice that drives my decisions. It was something some advice I had accidentally received in college, as in I was eavesdropping on a conversation and I heard it. And it was something that, really stuck with me. It was something I kind of already believed in, but hearing it worded so succinctly has helped kind of become this mantra that drove a lot of the major decisions in my life over the last 8 years. So when I was in college, I got to do a work study for one of my professors. I got to work in his lab, help the grad students, listen to very educated people of all ages banter and argue with each other about, things related to the fundamental theories in polymer science, to as esoteric as the right way to go up the stairs every day. So everybody argued about everything, and it was always a debate about what the best way was to do certain things, or who was right, what theory was correct. And it was a really great environment. I learned a lot. And every month in which we had birthdays, the group was not large enough that we had a birthday every month, but every month in which there was a birthday, we would all go to the really nice local the pizza restaurant, pizza place, and we would have cake, we would eat pizza. Some people would have a chicken sandwich without the sandwich. So in other words, chicken on a bed of lettuce, but they would order it as such. I'll have a chicken sandwich without the sandwich. And a lot of the people that would come to, there were a lot of people, you had the grad students, you had the work study students, you had the professor who kind of ran the group, you had his predecessor, and you had a lot of friends and adjuncts and other retired professors kind of come to the lunch. And it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of exposure to, these, people and ideas. And I remember specifically someone was giving advice to the professor that I worked for. And I don't know what the context of the conversation was. It was one of those things where I heard it clear as a bell. I wasn't talking to anyone. I wasn't really paying attention to much. I was just kind of eating my pizza and just kind of watching everyone enjoy themselves. And I heard this kind of clear as day, clear as a bell, loud as day, whatever, however you want to say it. And what the man had said was, the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. And he was speaking to the professor that I worked for, and I think it stuck more with me than anyone else in the room. I'm not even sure that anybody other than the professor that he was talking to had actually heard what he had said. But it really resonated with me. I was always the one seeking out knowledge. I was the annoying child asking why a million times. And I kind of still ask why a million times. I'm just more careful with my audience because I can tell sometimes when they're starting to get annoyed. But I'm going to repeat that. The day you stop learning is the day you start to die. The day you start dying. That kind of really struck me in here. The pursuit of learning has always been what life is about for me. And it turns out same with this professor. Whether you're learning in school, you're learning, on the job, you're learning how to save your money, you're learning how to be a better parent or a partner or a friend or anything. The path to greatest learning is the one that I ultimately choose. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean the path to the fire hose of information is the one for me. We all need to understand how we learn. And I am the one who learns kind of by experimentation. It's part of my training as a scientist and engineer to constantly use the scientific method. And that is kind of, I would say for the most part, that's how I learn. I observe something, I research it, I come up with an idea, formulate a hypothesis, I design an experiment to test that hypothesis, I perform the experiment, I analyze the result, draw a conclusion, and then kind of repeat the process. Whether it's, a completely new branch of anything that I'm working on, or if it's just, if it's something, an offshoot of what I just learned and experimented on. So simply reading all of the books or being thrown to the wolves, it only serves as a one-way ticket to frustration and overwhelm for me, and it probably does with many of you as well. So what works best for me is a balance between the reading and the experience / experimentation. So a bit of theory and a bit of practice. That tends to be my you know, my MO. And this applies to all aspects of one's life. Like I said, it's not just work, it's not just school, it's not just your downtime, it's not your family, it is all of them, everything. Everyone in the world knows at least one thing that you don't, and you can learn probably multiple things from every person you meet. I've personally made it my personal goal to constantly be in learning mode. And I feel really stagnant and unhealthy when I go without learning something new or going unchallenged for an extended period of time. And it is this feeling that drives me to make changes in my life. I feel almost like I'm going stale or something when, you know, when you do the same thing every day for a long time. Like, some people find calm in it. To them, it's routine where they can focus on the little variations from the day to day. Some people really find joy in that. I personally do not. If I get to do something a lot and I see enough variation that I understand what's going on and I can make reasonable predictions, that's fun for me. But once I've got that figured out, I tend to get a bit bored. So in that case, if I was stuck in a situation like that, I would be feeling like I'm banging my head against a wall every day. It hurts, and I'm not accomplishing anything. So what I propose today is that I'm challenging you to add experiments into your life. You know, what are you going to learn? What decisions will you make? You know, what are you going to experiment with, you know, or on? The first really, really big decision that I made using this particular mindset was to cut out a toxic family member. Started off with, you know, the person screaming at me on the phone, and my first thought, like, at some point it just kind of clicked in my head while this person was screaming at me on the phone. And I was like, what if I hung up on this person? How would I feel if I didn't have to interact with this person for 24 hours, like one day? How would I feel at the end of that? What would happen? How would I feel if I didn't interact with this person for 2 days in a row? It turns out one bad apple had spoiled the barrel, unfortunately, and I had to extricate myself from my family as a result of this. You know, a lot of them are great people, but unfortunately there's no way to, you know, extricate one person. So unfortunately I had to extricate almost them all, which, you know, it's unfortunate, but sometimes you need to do what you need to do to stay mentally healthy and sane. But looking back on the last 8 years, you know, here are all other major decisions that I've made based on, you know, experimentation and learning and choosing the path to learning. I was able to participate in an activity that I loved for several years after thinking I could never do it again. I started to go to counseling, and I slowly have been learning how to emotionally function as an adult instead of a very emotionally repressed and traumatized child. I advanced my career with a new company. I paid off my car and all of my student loan debt. My partner and I then bought a house together. I started graduate schools, which meant, you know, yay, more student loans. So I'm going to have to pay that off soon. And then I advanced my career again with another new company. So all of these decisions were driven by needing to learn more and putting myself on a path to be constantly learning more. So participating in an activity that I love, I was able to learn a lot more about this activity and kind of how to get really good at it. I got to, you know, I was very mentally challenged, trying to do so many things at once. You're breathing, you're throwing air out, you're exhaling really strongly, you're trying to listen to everybody around you, you're trying to run around without running into someone else. It was pretty much like a marching band type activity. So I was doing kind of like an adult professional-ish, semi-professional marching band type activity. So, you know, I'm running around playing the trumpet and I'm trying to listen, make sure I'm in tune with everybody while, you know, dodging people with flags and spinning chunks of metal and people with other chunks of metal on their faces and trying not to hit anyone. And there's a lot of mental exertion done in learning how to do that and learning how to do that well. Unfortunately, my lungs could no longer take it after a while, but I did get to participate in this for several years, and I really enjoyed my time in that activity. So there was a lot of things learned, a lot of mindset things that I had kind of gained from that experience. It was interestingly enough, a way to kind of hone my personal work ethic, to strategically focus on, what will advance me here, what won't advance me here, what is wasting my time, what my time be most used effectively. So I learned a lot from getting to pursue this, and I started to go to counseling. Obviously, there was a lot of learning involved with that step, because I was kind of going to counseling saying, hi, this is what has happened to me. How do I function as an adult? I mean, I can go to work, I can pay my bills, I can, do all that stuff, but any emotional anything, I can't do that. I can do the individual functions of taking care of myself as an adult, but I couldn't do the emotional part. So I've been doing that for 7 years now, and I've learned a lot from it. I've wasted some time in it, but overall I've learned a lot in it. So there was a lot of learning done in that avenue. I got to advance my career for the first time with a new company, where I was kind of doing an offshoot of my previous job, where I got to learn a completely new skill set. And it was honestly the experience. I learned more in 3 months, in my first 3 months at that new job, than I did in the previous 3 years at my previous job. Because my previous job was just kind of an offshoot of my education. They're like, oh, well, you went to college for this, so we're going to put you in this nice little box. Oh, and we're going to add this other thing to it that nobody wants to do, so we're giving it to you. And I got bored of that fast. I got to do some really cool projects that I sought out of myself, but I realized quickly that there was no future for me there. So then I learned this completely new offshoot of what I was previously doing. I learned this new offshoot. I kind of gained a lot of knowledge in kind of mechanical bearing, so to speak. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I learned a lot of how things get put together, and how, a lot of how to design things for other people to use. And I was really, it was a great experience. And I did that for many, many years. I got to pay off my car and student loan debt. And a lot of people would say, hold on, you're just paying off debt. What does that have to do with learning? Well, I made a spreadsheet to kind of follow everything and track all of my expenses. And I learned a lot through that action, and even scheduling my student loan payoffs of, hey, if I can put together an extra $10 a month, how much sooner can I pay off my debt? Or those kinds of things. And I literally created a giant spreadsheet. Was it done in the most proper way? No. Was it effective? Absolutely. I didn't know that there were financial calculators built into Excel until I took a finance course, which obviously I hadn't done that yet when I did that. As soon as I am able to dig it out of the depths of old computers, that spreadsheet, we can go over it, and I'll show you how I paid off my student loan debt and plus my car. But I am still digging. I can't find it. We'll find it and we'll go over it. My partner and I bought a house together, and this was kind of my first adult venture into real estate. My father is a part-time real estate agent, and he has been since I was in middle school. Actually, yeah, he has been since I was in middle school, and he loves the industry. He wishes he could have done it full time, but the area that he lives in, the houses he sells, they make a really nice side income, but they don't pay the bills. So that's, so I kind of learned a lot of that growing up. And, I got to help him do CMAs. He would, for comparative market analyses. I got to, help print out flyers for open houses. I got to, if there was a property he wanted to look at, I would get to, looking back, I got to go along. Sometimes I didn't want to go, but it was useful kind of looking through, and what does my dad look for in a property, whereas what did I see that he wasn't seeing? There was a lot of information that I kind of absorbed through the years with my dad being a real estate agent, that I started to apply it when I was looking for the house that my partner and I would buy and live in together. He didn't really have the experience I had, so I said, hey, what do you absolutely have to have in the house that we buy together? And, he gave me 3 things, and I was like, really? That's it? That's all you need? And he's like, yes, those 3 things. Okay. They were, for the most part, pretty easy to find. It was hard to find like the specific in an area that made both of our commutes easy. But once we saw, I was literally checking all of the websites daily, and I kind of learned how to house hunt again, except I got to apply the knowledge that from when my dad would say, hey, let's go look at this place. I knew what to look for when we were looking for property. Once we found one, but I didn't know how to find one. So I did spend a lot of time. So there's a lot of knowledge in that. And then in the actual purchase of a home, I didn't know that once you paid off your student loans, that those accounts were considered closed and that you were dead to the credit companies unless you had a credit card. When I did not get a credit card until I was 30, because I didn't realize that I needed one. I figured, oh, well, I'm building my credit by, paying my car, paying my student loans, paying my phone bill. I didn't realize that once the accounts were closed, that I was just considered dead to the credit companies. So while I never missed a payment, and I had, 7 years worth of payments on my student loans and about 4 years worth of payments on my car, I had excellent credit, but I had no current credit. So unfortunately, when we bought the house, I had to go kind of officially completely in his name. So I learned my lesson there. So there was, like I said, there was a lot of learning going on in buying a house together. And then shortly after that, I started graduate school, where I was working full-time and going to school full-time. I'm still doing that. I've been able to, between scholarships and the money I've had saved up, I've been able to pay for roughly half of it, and the rest of it I'm taking out in student loans. So once I'm graduated, I gotta work on paying that back again, but it's a much better interest rate this time around than I had my first time around, and I'm not taking out almost as much. I'm not taking out as much as I did the last time around. So between those 2 things and the fact that I am farther advanced in my career, it's going to be hopefully easier for me to pay all of this off than the last time around. And then most recently, I advanced my career again with another new company. I learned all the things that I did in my previous company, and I just kind of felt stagnant. I mean, I stopped learning. I wasn't being challenged, and I'm like, okay, the heck is going on here? I was promised daily challenges, and this all of a sudden dried up. No more challenges. Okay. So then I started looking, and I spent many years looking. And I finally found something that kind of excited me. Unfortunately, it was like, oh, it's in a completely different area that you're going to have to move to. So now I'm renting again, which kind of sucks, but I'm already, I'm through 3 months in again. I wouldn't say I've learned more in these 3 months than I did in the last 3 years of the previous company, because that wouldn't be correct. But I've definitely been given a lot more freedoms to go explore and learn how I desire. And I'm challenging myself in the way, for the most part, that I want to be challenged. So it's more of a choose your own adventure, which I really like. So when I have a big decision regarding how I spend my time laying in front of me, I consider the learning opportunities that come from both situations. See, I do this, or I do that, or I do nothing. And when I do that, I also consider added stressors, which would detract me from learning in those particular situations. You might have an amazing learning opportunity, but if you're going to be put in a situation that jeopardizes your mental health in order to take that opportunity, well, then you might consider other options. For a prime example, I had a job opportunity a few years back that offered a lot of learning and a lot of travel, which I love adventure. So I was kind of salivating over the opportunity. But then I was interviewing with the HR manager, and he was very rude to me, kept cutting me off, wouldn't let me finish a question. And then I later found out by asking other people who worked at that company, which I had been kind of feeling around to begin with. Like, there were a couple of people that I had a mutual friend with a few people at this company, and they had informed me that that particular HR manager had, he had a tendency for not respecting women, and he had this, he was pretty much, he had some other issues, but pretty much the key one in reference to the experience I had was that he was typically disrespectful to women, which, you don't really want in an HR manager. But the job technically, in addition to that issue, the job technically had been presented to me as a work from home position, as in I would work from a home office unless I was needed on a site, or until I was needed at a particular site, in which case I would travel to the site. So it was something supposed to be like 75% to 90% travel. And, I was all gung-ho for it, but every time they would talk about that, they'd say, so when are you moving to a plant? Every single time. And I had just bought my home with my partner. We had just bought the home and moved into it. And I wanted to stay in that house for, at least a couple of years, so that we could start to build some equity in the place, get some time to make some improvements. Because we had bought a house that, it was a beautiful house. It's a beautiful house. It's in a decent neighborhood, and there were a lot of updates that need to be made. So we scraped off the popcorn ceiling, we replaced the carpets enough to move in. We had several other projects planned to slowly update the house as we were living in it. And literally all we had done was scrape the ceilings and replace the carpets. I didn't even have time to start putting other finishing touches on the house. I wanted to redo the bathroom. I wanted to redo the downstairs bathroom. I had plans. I still have plans. But I had plans for this house, and they kept pushing that, like, oh, well, we're going to want you to move to a plant eventually. And they were really pushy about this. And I'm like, why would you be so pushy now? I was, why not wait? And I kept saying, I just bought this house. I just bought this house. I just bought this house. I kept saying that to them, and it was like in one ear, out the other. And this is why I ultimately turned down the job. If they really wanted me there, they would have dropped the subject only to bring it up again later, after I had been there for a little bit. They wanted me to uproot me and my partner and move to a plant, even though the job was technically work from home, without me knowing whether or not everything was going to work out okay the way I wanted. So that was a situation I knew, based on dealing with the HR manager and how pushy they were about me moving, that, as much as I love travel, and as much as I love solving problems, and as much as I love the autonomy that was going to come with it, it wasn't going to be worth the headaches of them pressuring me. Because if they were pressuring me to move already, that means they didn't really want to give me the autonomy that they were promising. So in that case, between my personal situation and the mental health, would have been far worse off if I had pursued that opportunity and taken the job like they had offered. So what is next? Who knows? But for all of those ensuing life changes, all of the ensuing life changes are based on the fact that the pursuit of learning drove these actions. I have already kind of explained where all of those came from. So I'd like you to tell me something in exchange. How do you learn new things? What was your biggest takeaway from this video? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to have a discussion with you. So stay safe, stay healthy, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a fantastic week.